What is up, everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Now, regular viewers will know that I did ride a Cub, and in today's video I want to talk a little bit about Cubs, especially 125cc Cubs. If you haven't seen my previous video on the Daytona DY 125 RS, you can check it out by clicking right up here. But on to today's video. Cubs, they're a bit of a weird thing in the world of motorcycles. Their main objective is to be cheap, and that was perfectly true of the Daytona. It was cheap to buy, cheap to run, cheap to maintain, didn't use a lot of fuel. Everything was cheap about it, including the plastics felt cheap. The only thing that didn't feel cheap about it was the drivetrain. The drivetrain actually felt extremely solid and well put together. But everything else, you could see it was a cheap bike, you could feel it was a cheap bike, and it was a cheap bike. I mean, 2,000 euros for a 125cc two-wheeled vehicle is a great price. But what happens when you want a Cub? You want the riding style of a Cub with no clutch, semi-automatic gearbox, but you don't want it to feel cheap, and you have the money to buy one. You have more than 2,000 euros for a Cub, but you want something a little bit more premium, something that feels nicer, that looks nicer. What happens then? What do you buy? Well, thankfully, SYM has an answer for that. At about 3,000 euros, depending on your market, you can actually get something like this, which is the SYM VF 125. And it's a Cub, as normal Cubs are, with no clutch lever, with a 4-speed semi-automatic gearbox, 17-inch wheels, low fuel consumption, but everything on it looks and feels quality. So, as we usually do from front wheel to back wheel, let's get into it and see what this thing is all about. Alright, starting off front, we have our main headlight up here with the high and low beam. It's halogen. I would have liked to see this LED. For the price point, this should have been LED. Maybe next year we'll have LED, I don't know. But hopefully at some point this will get changed out for an LED. We have a strip of daytime running lights here, LED daytime running lights. We have our halogen turn signal indicators. We have our skinny front wheel with a 17-inch rim and a single brake disc up front with a dual piston caliper. This does have quite a lot of braking force in it. Moving around to the side, we have our normal Cub layout with a skinny seat, not too low, not too high seat height, a low handlebar, our foot pegs, our gear shifter, passenger foot pegs, passenger accommodations. We do have a bit of a tunnel here, which I would have liked to seen it a little bit lower, but then we're going into scooter territory and that's not the point of this thing. Also, you can either open the seat from back here, or if you put the ignition on, you have a button on the dash that opens the seat. We do have a little bit of under seat storage. You are not going to fit a helmet in here, but it's better than nothing. Moving around to the back, we have dual shocks on the rear, adjustable for preload, and remote reservoirs for the shock oil. This is actually pretty interesting because this means this thing can hold weight. 17-inch wheel on the back with, again, a single disc on the back with a single piston caliper. Our exhaust, LED rear lights with halogen turn signal indicators, and this small little spoiler, call it what you would call tail, I don't know. It's small. It's just a design accent. What we also have is our rear brake here and also a kickstart. In case the battery runs out, you also have a kickstart. Also, for putting fuel in the thing, the fuel tank is right here underneath the seat. It's about 3.6 liters, but with the fuel consumption that this thing has, it's good for about 200 kilometers city riding. So 3.6 liters, not a problem. costs almost nothing to fill up and goes 200 kilometers. Coming around to the dashboard, we have our ignition switch down here. We have our seat popper right here. We have our big rev counter, idiot lights on the right and on the left. A small digital display here which shows our odometer, our trip meter, our oil meter, a gear position indicator, a fuel level indicator, our speed in digital form, and on the left hand side we have our high and low beams, turn signal indicators, and horn. The thing about the VF, everything feels quality. The dash looks nice, the plastics feel solid, nothing shakes, nothing rattles. It feels like a quality product, and that's the nice part. Everything you touch is nice to the touch. The bar ends are metal and feel cold to the touch. Everything is nice to the touch. In terms of riding position, just like any Cub, it's so light. Just get on it. The seat is nice and low. I can easily flat foot the thing at 175 centimeters tall, and it's so low. It's so low and light. It's ridiculous. But who is this thing for? Well, like I've said, this thing is for somebody who desperately wants a Cub, doesn't want to switch to a motorcycle, doesn't want to switch to a scooter. They just want a Cub for the city. They like that transmission, and I can understand why, but they want something that looks a little bit nicer, feels a little bit more premium. It's just a nicer bike all around than just your cheap as chips Cubs. It just feels nicer. You can park this in front of any restaurant or hotel. It will look nice. But without any further ado, let's see how this thing rides. Come on. Alrighty. Let's see how a premium Cub feels. Well, in terms of riding, it feels exactly as I would expect it to feel. It feels just like the 125 RS that I've ridden before, because the recipe is the same. 17-inch wheels, 125cc engine, semi-automatic gearbox, just about the same weight, just about the same riding position. So in terms of dynamics, there's really not much different than any other Cub. Where it does differ, and this is basically a case of taste. Where it does differ from other Cubs is in the fact that it just feels nicer. It looks nicer. When you look at it after you parked it, it just looks nice. It looks a little bit more expensive. It feels nicer. Riding it just feels a little bit nicer. Every time you look down at the dash, you see these nice gauges, this nice fairing. It just looks a lot better, and that makes you feel good about yourself. Let's be honest, who doesn't like a nice thing? But otherwise, it's just as fun as any old regular Cub. It's just as good in the city. So small, so light, so nimble. And this semi-automatic gearbox, it's so easy to use. I mean, I'm pulling around in second gear here because mainly that's the speed at which I'm going. Second gear is perfect for this kind of running around the yard. But you can get it up higher into the gears. It's just as good on the bumps as any old other Cub. It feels at home on rough surfaces because of the 17-inch wheels. It's just as fun to upshift and downshift. This is the thing I like about Cubs. It's so easy to go through the gearbox, considering you don't have a clutch to worry about. You just master the art of the centrifugal clutch, and you have so much fun with it. On the upshifts, on the downshifts, it's just so fun. But it's so easy to ride. I mean, anybody can get on it and ride. You don't need to learn to master the clutch. I'm still not completely used to how to ride a Cub and how to operate the gearbox. I'm still searching for my clutch. My hand is still searching for the clutch, and sometimes I forget to shift because I'm thinking that I'm on a scooter, because it leaves like a scooter. But these are things you get used to in time. This is something you can get used to. And it's still a lot of fun. So I have nothing to complain about the SYM VF. Maybe the single thing I would have to complain about it, at 3,000 euros, I would have liked to see ABS on it. I don't know if maybe there wasn't enough room to put ABS in the VF, or it was too expensive, and currently with all the chip shortages, a lot of ABS manufacturers, especially Bosch, are having quite a lot of trouble with sending units to factories so they can assemble their scooters. So is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? I don't know. But at this price point, I would have loved to see ABS on the thing. But otherwise, the engine is nice and pokey. The foot pegs are in a nice position, they're comfortable, they're right beneath you, you can get up on the pegs, you can sit back down. As all Cubs, it's extremely comfortable around the city and super easy to maneuver, super lightweight, super easy to maneuver. Turning radius, let's check it out. So turning radius, I mean, come on, it's less. If I go full lock, it's less than a lane. So in less than 3 meters you can turn this thing around. It does what all Cubs do. They're extremely light, extremely maneuverable, extremely easy to ride motorcycles for the city. This is not a scooter. Don't confuse it with a scooter. It feels nothing like a scooter. This feels like a small motorcycle with a bit of a weird gearbox that's actually a little bit easier to use. What I did like a little bit more on the DY125 RS, I think the foot pegs were a little bit in a better position. I'm struggling to find the heel shifter, but if I start using the front part of the shifter to go down, yeah, that's easier. So basically on the 125 RS I was using the heel shifter and it felt nice. On this one I kind of use my toe for everything, both up and down shifts, because for me it's in a better position. But again, this thing is made for short riders. If you're 2 meters tall, I would advise against it, to be honest. It's a little bit small for somebody of that stature. But if you're 175, 180, 170, 165, you will fit on this no problem. And if you have never ridden a Cub, try one. They're quite interesting, to be honest. They're quite interesting, they're quite fun, extremely pokey. And around the city, you can have a lot of fun with a Cub. So easy to chuck around and so fun to chuck around, and the power is there, it's immediate, the drive is direct. That's the difference between a scooter and this. The drive feels so direct, easy to downshift, you just have to rev match. This is a lot of fun, a lot of fun. So yeah, that's the gist of the matter. It's a Cub like any old other Cub. In terms of riding it, there's nothing special, nothing extra here compared to another Cub. But where it differs is the build quality, the looks, the way the materials feel. They just feel premium compared to other Cubs. So if you're looking for something that's a little bit more premium, but still you want a Cub, check it out. Check it out, don't rule it out just because it's a SYM. Check it out and enjoy it. But thank you also very much for watching, for liking the videos, for subscribing. Remember, if you want to support the channel, you could consider becoming a member of the channel and getting access to a few perks that only members get. And until next time, guys, take care out there and ride safe. Goodbye.